Hello friends, welcome back to my new video lecture. In this lecture today, I will be talking about Aristotle's reply to Plato's theory of imitation. How does Aristotle see poetry as an art form or any other art form? How does he see? And this is a reply that Aristotle gives to Plato in terms of his observations about poetry as an art form. So we can term this lecture as Aristotle's defense of the theory of mimesis that Aristotle gives. So before I move ahead, my dear friends, it is my humble request to you all that if possible, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and as you can see on the screen, please press the bell icon for a regular notification so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. And one more thing, that if you have some time of yours, please watch till the end of this video, because this video I think will give you an idea about Aristotle's proper defense of the theory of imitation, and the concept I will try to clarify in as simple language as I can. So my dear friends, let us start Aristotle's his defense on the theory of mimesis or theory of imitation or theory of poetry or art form that Plato had given, or Plato condemns as art twice removed from reality. So let us start the lecture. Aristotle, in the beginning only, he says he agrees with Plato when Plato calls the poet as an imitator and creative art, or as imitation. Plato basically calls poet as imitator, and he gives the he condemns poets as twice any art form as twice removed from reality. In the first part, when Aristotle gives his defense, in the first part he agrees what Plato calls the poet an imitator or and creative art as imitation. So poet as an imitator, or an art as an imitator, artist as an imitator, and creative art as an imitation, he agrees. And he says that the artist imitates one of the three objects. Out of one of the three he imitates. It can be that the things as they are, as it is appearing, he imitates. Or he can be that things are as said or thought, that is imitated, or things which ought to be in the near future he imitates. So out of these three, as it appears plain, simple, an imitator or an artist imitates, or as they are said or thought to be, he imitates, or what ought to be in the future he imitates. So out of one of these three, according to Aristotle, the poet is an imitator, and he agrees to Plato. In other words, what he means is, the poet or a creative artist, he imitates what is past or present, or what can be in store for a future, or commonly believed what is to be ideal situation in the future. And Aristotle also believes that there is a natural tendency of pleasure of imitation, and he refers it, he compares it, that this pleasure of imitation which one has, a human being has, is a instinct right from the birth. When a child is born, right from that time, this imitation and the pleasure of imitation is imbibed in a human being. And he gives the example that it is this pleasure of the imitation which enables the child to learn his early speeches and dictions and conduct himself according to his surroundings. What he means that he learns the language, he imitates the language, and as well as he learns the manners, behaviors in which that particular child is born in the society. And he says, why did it do that? Because there is a pleasure. And this particular child, when the child grows up in the form of a poet, there is another instinct. And what is instinct? This instinct is as a poet, to establish harmony and rhythm. Till here, he agrees to Plato. Then he disagrees with his teacher, Plato, where his teacher says that a poet's imitation is twice removed from reality, and hence the poetry's creation is very unreal, very illusionary of truths. Aristotle completely disagrees in this point with his teacher. And what does Aristotle say? He simply compares poetry with history. And he says that the basic difference between a poet and a historian is not by their medium. They don't differ by their medium. But the truth of difference is, what is the truth of difference? What is the basic difference between a historian and a poet? He says, the historian writes what has happened. The poet can write what might happen, or what may happen, or what ought to happen, the ideal. And that's why, according to Aristotle, poetry therefore is more philosophical and higher than the thing called history, which only expresses the particular, while poetry tends to express the universal. Therefore, the picture of the poetry pleases all and at all times. Aristotle is of that opinion. Aristotle also does not agree to Plato in terms of where Plato says that poetry makes people weaker and emotional and very sentimental. He does not agree to him. Aristotle completely disagrees on this point with Plato, and he says that this cathartic effect which is produced in a poet, or when this cathartic effect is produced in a reader, it makes the reader more humble human beings. And so far as the morality of the poetry is concerned, according to Aristotle, he says that the end of the poetry is to, please. That is the end matter of poetry. The function, the end of the poetry, the morality, the moral nature of the poetry is, when you talk about, according to Aristotle, he says that the ultimate aim of the poetry is to please. However, teaching may be given. That is an optional, that is an add-on service. And such pleasing, according to Aristotle, is superior to other pleasures, because it gives you it teaches you the civic morality. Therefore, according to Aristotle, all good literature gives pleasure. That is not diverse from moral lessons. Ultimate aim of poetry is to please. Morality can be a part of it. Plato says that art, being the imitation of the actual, is removed from the truth. It only gives likeness of a thing that is concrete and likeness that is always less real. But Plato fails to understand that the art, that is the art which is created, the painting that is created, also gives something more which is absent in the actual. What does he mean by that? Please refer to my previous video on Plato's, idea or theory of imitation. Let me just, through that example which Plato gives, the example of the chair, let me just explain this point. Which point? The point here is, Aristotle says that Plato fails to understand one point, and that is, when a painter is painting that chair, that physical chair, because Plato says that the physical chair is the product of the original idea of the carpenter, and that is why when the carpenter is producing the original idea which he has in his head, in his mind, into the form of that physical chair is the first one, which is the first imitation, because it is an imitation of the original idea. And when the painter is painting that physical chair which the carpenter is produced, so the painter is painting that chair, so that painting is twice removed from reality, because it is the second imitation of the imitation. That is the point which Plato gives, and he refutes poetry and art. And let us try to understand Aristotle's concept where he refutes this idea of Plato. He objects it. He says that Plato is trying to say that when a painter is painting that original physical chair, that painter is painting that chair which is already an imitation, and so that painting is twice that imitation. But what Plato fails to understand is when that painter is painting that chair which he is painting has something more to that original physical chair. What does he mean by it? He means that when the painter is painting that original physical chair, he is putting his own emotions, he is putting his own artistic skills, he is putting his own thoughts, he is putting his own futuristic perspectives, and then he is painting that painting of the chair. So he is rendering his own originality to the chair. He is adding something more to the chair which is absent in this physical chair. That is what is meant by this point called when Aristotle says that Plato fails to understand that art also gives something more which is absent in the actual. And he says that the artist does not simply reflect the real or the manner or the mirror. Literature is not photography. Reproduction in all its totality of the life form. That is what I said. It is not a photographic representation, and that is why photography is considered not to be an art, whereas painting is an art. Statue which is made from machine is not an art, but when you make a sculpture, it is an art. Why? Because no matter you are seeing something which is there in front of you. Suppose you are seeing a photograph or you are seeing someone and you are making a painting or a sculpture. You are adding your own emotions, feelings, artistic thoughts and future perspectives. So you are giving birth to something new. But when in photography you are clicking a photograph, the machine is involved. When the machine is involved, of course it is not an art form. Okay, so it is not according to Aristotle, this painter who is painting this original chair or the sculpture who is making that sculpture, is not the mere photographic, representation. It is more to it. Then Plato says that art is bad because it does not inspire virtue, it does not teach morality. Aristotle differs. Aristotle says that what is the function of the art? Is teaching the function of art? What is the aim of the artist? Is teaching the aim of the artist? According to Aristotle, the function of the art is to provide aesthetic delight, aesthetic pleasure, communicative experience, expression of emotion, thoughts, feelings, and representation of life. That is the function of art. And the function of art should never be confused with the function of ethics. What is the function of ethics? The function of ethics is to teach morality. So why is the function of art being mixed up, jumbled up with the function of ethics? That is his point. We should keep, according to Aristotle, we should keep these two aspects different. Art is aesthetic delight, whereas ethics, the function of art is to provide aesthetic delight, whereas the function of ethics is to simply teach morality. He says, let us keep simple. According to Aristotle, he says, let us keep simple. If an artist is able to please through his artistic forms, through his aesthetic, through his arts, if he is able to please the aesthetic sense, he is a good artist. And if he is not, he is a bad artist. Let's keep it simple. Let's not mix it with ethics. And then one more Plato charges that, Plato says that poetry produces, needless lamentation and ecstasies and, at the events of sorrows and, happiness, which are imaginary, illusionary, and it encourages the weaker part of the soul. These are all points that Plato mentions in his theory of mimesis. This charge is also defended by Aristotle in his theory of catharsis. And what does he do? David Dacius, a famous critic, he summarizes Aristotle's views when he replies to Plato's charges of this numbness of faculty and all these things which Plato charges against poetry. David Dacius, the critic, he summarizes Aristotle's reply. Aristotle says that tragedy or art gives new knowledge. It gives new aesthetic pleasure, satisfaction, and also helps in the balancing, produces a very good state of mind. That is Aristotle's views, where he replies to Plato's charges about art, in which Plato says that it charges needless lamentations, ecstasies at the imaginary events and happinesses, and it encourages weaker part of the soul. In this response, David Dacius summarizes Plato's reply, where Plato says that the tragedy or the art gives new knowledge, yields aesthetic pleasure and satisfaction, and produces a better state of mind. Now there is one more point. Plato judges poetry from the educational point of view, from the educational standpoint of view, from the physical standpoint of view, and then from the ethical one. These are the three basic points that Plato deals with. But he does not consider it from his own unique standpoint. He does not define its aim. He says that he forgets everything that should be judged in terms of its own aims. Just because music, we cannot fairly maintain that music is bad because it does not paint, or painting is bad because it does not sing, or we have to understand the fact that the aim of poetry is not teaching morality. Aristotle clearly says it. Aristotle clearly says it, that the aim of poetry is to give pleasure, aesthetic pleasure, and the aim of ethics is to teach morality. So why are we mixing ethics and art? That has to be defined. So we cannot say that a poetry is bad because it does not teach morality, or it does not teach philosophy of ethics. So this is the point which Aristotle gives. These are some of the points that I have discussed in this video, where Aristotle tries to give a defense to poetry or art form as twice removed from reality, which was condemned by Plato, and he tries to establish it through his various arguments that why art is unique. And also he makes very clear that what is the function of art, and we should not crisscross, mix up the function of art and the function of ethics. Dear friends, I hope I was able to give you some insight into this great discussion which took place between Plato and Aristotle. Please watch both the videos of mine, first by Plato and then by Aristotle, in order to have a clear understanding of these concepts. Thank you very much for watching, and just before leaving, I would just like to request you all that if possible, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, as you can see here, and please press the bell icon, which is very important for getting updation of the notifications. As soon as I update a new video on my YouTube channel, you will be notified, and these videos will help you in various examinations, be it undergraduates, postgraduates, or various competitive examinations. I am for sure about it. Thank you for watching till the end of this video, and thank you for taking out your valuable time and giving space and time to my video and watching my video. Thank you so much. I'm really humble and obliged for that. And thank you for watching. May God bless you all. Until next time, this is Dr. Shoikat Banerjee signing off. Thank you very much.